Hello. Well, it's been a while. Yeah, I said I was trying to keep up with and trying to upload every month. Yeah, that got out the window pretty fast. Yeah, not gonna lie, it was some pretty busy months, mainly because I had to work a second job at the same time as continuing with the project. So anyway, yeah, I still have a lot to tell you about. The first thing being the next playtest, which is coming in 2 weeks. With a lot more than in the first playtest. So first playtest was mostly on World 1, including the first boss. The second playtest is probably going to be the biggest playtest that I'm going to do for the entire project, because it's not only going to include the second world, which is now complete, but also the first world. So you're going to be able to play through the first 2 acts, basically, of the game. So that's 4 floors in total. And you're going to be able to experience a lot of stuff. It's not going to be limited in terms of abilities, in terms of weapons. You're going to have access to pretty much everything that is available and stable in the game at the moment. The goal of the playtest this time is, again, not only to get player feedback, to know what works, what doesn't work. That is one of the key points of the playtest, actually, because, for example, the junk rifle that was added during the previous playtest is something that we basically added because of player feedback. You know, people were running out of bullets. They needed like a secondary option that was stable. So basically we add in the junk rifle. So for this playtest, we not only want to get player feedback, but it is also a point for us to basically try to make the game more well-known, because, you know, it is still a new project. It is still the first game for Honest Demon, for the studio. So there's not, you know, a big community that awaits us. So essentially the playtest is also to get a bit of hype behind the game. So if you guys are interested in the game and try it out and have fun, definitely tell your friends. That's going to help us tremendously. But also, if you want to post videos of you playing the game, or even streaming on Twitch, that not only is, you know, permitted, is actually recommended, because again, it is going to help us get the word out there about the game. And even if you have some you know, feedback, some constructive feedback, of course, but if you have some points that you think needs to be changed, that is all welcome as well. Also, it has officially been a year of development. I started the project, The Last Citadel, a year ago in mid to late October, so we are a year into the project. Still a good year left to work on it, but I'm very proud of where we are after just a year, and considering I'm a solo dev on that project. But now, what has happened in the last 3 months? What has been added to the game? Well, let's jump in and see. So what I've been doing in the last 3 months? Well, there's a couple of things, and I'm going to start with the most obvious one, which is World 2 Act 2. So just to recap, even before jumping into this, World 1 is the main ground of the Citadel, and then World 2, Act 1 is this area here. So if I jump into the game, with a bit of loading here, let's full screen this, and then let's actually remove the music. Sound gone. There we go. So essentially, this is the first act of the World 2. So this is like a big cavern here. This is something that's already been seen, though a lot of new module has been added into that scene. But essentially, it's still the same scene. Now, what is Act 2? So when I talk about worlds, I talk basically about the type of modules that are inside of it. So when we go to World 2 Act 2, it's going to be the same modules, but the environment may change. So between World 1 Act 1 and World 1 Act 2, there's not much difference at the moment. I do want to change that eventually, but for World 2 Act 2 there is a big difference, and of course there's other stuff that you may not notice, because of course I just muted the game, but essentially the music also is different and stuff like that. But essentially this is now World 2 Act 2. So we are really getting deeper into the asteroid, but at the same time getting close to the black hole. So you can see in the environment here, there's some embers going up, some asteroids, like pieces of rocks floating up towards the one of the rings that's going around there. And the modules themselves are the same. So again, when we are changing Act, we are not changing the modules, we are just changing basically the environment. So it is a second generation using the same, basically the same modules again. Now, right now I have a tier 1 weapon, and this is basically level 4, so my weapons are almost freaking useless. But yeah, essentially we are now done with World 2. When I say done, it's not completely done. That's actually not correct, because I still need to do more modules. If we go inside and actually look at the details here for a second, so already talked a bit in the previous devlogs about how the generation works. So it's basically a module-based generation. That's why I'm talking about modules. And
A are the big ones, like the principal ones. B are mid-size. C are corridors that are linking everything together. And D are special types of events. Type A in World 1, we have 8. That is a fair number. World 2, we only have 4. So the rest of the modules, if we talk about Type B, we actually have more. But for World 2, the Type A modules are still lacking at the moment. So it's not completely done, but it is very playable, and you're going to get some very different layout every single time. So if I hit simulate again, you're going to see like a different layout spawn here. And one of the other points is the end will always finish going inside. So the goal of this is really to lead deeper into the Citadel. So even though the generation is completely random, it is always going to finish going towards there. So it gives a bit more control when we're generating, so that it really looks like we're going towards the black hole there. But essentially, yeah, so the second world is pretty much done, aside again from adding modules. Another thing that we've did is add a new enemy. So we have this guy, Arc Fiend. Let me load into my debugging world for a second. That enemy was actually done entirely on stream. And he is an enemy that doesn't deal damage directly. So I'll put him here, and we're going to see what he does. Essentially, he's going to curse a player. So you can see here, I have a curse that's starting. I actually will re-enable the sound for this. And let me actually restart this. So we have a curse building up, and when it's completely done drawing, that curse will apply. So this one is a visibility curse. We actually got twice the same thing in a row, but there's actually 4 curses. I'm gonna let him do a second one. But basically, there's a curse to reduce your visibility that we just got. There's a curse that will heal. It's actually this one. It's going to heal every enemy that's around you. Another curse will, and you can actually see it here, it's healing this guy. Another curse will drain your bullets, and the final one will reverse your controls for aiming. So if you're aiming with a normal control scheme, it's going to invert that. In terms of enemies, they also have been vastly rebalanced. There's a couple of things, mainly the Sceptral Demon. So this guy here, we reduce the fire rate of his attack, because he is one really annoying prick. That's the goal, but you know, he was maybe a bit too annoying. So we changed some values, but one of the things that I did as well is when you get to higher player counts, so when you're playing with 3 or 4 players, there were so many enemies. I can show you guys some of the clips that we got. It was kind of insane, like especially in the trap rooms. So I did a lot of rebalancing to basically beef up the enemies so that they hit harder. They're not going to be necessarily tankier, but they're going to hit harder, and they're going to be a bit less than what they used to be before the patch. So a lot of balancing was done. Aside from that, I also tackled a lot of optimization since the last playtest. So in that, there's a lot to still be done. But essentially, I can show you guys here, one of the key things that I did is part of the animations. If I spawn a bunch here, you can see them. Actually, I think I'll change this in a second. Instead of spawning just these guys, I'm going to spawn random enemies. Essentially, there was a lot done in terms of collisions to optimize them, in terms of shadows, and in terms of animation. So that's something that is not necessarily as easy to think, but basically if you look at the enemies that are in front of my reticle right now, so like these flying enemies, you can see that their frames are already being altered a bit. They're not as smooth as normal. And if you look at that enemy to the side, so completely over there, so these flying guys here, if you look at them while I'm offset, you can see that their animations are actually updating maybe 3 to 4 times a second, so it is a lot more jankier. And as you progress, like if I make even more enemies here, and I see these animations are going to slow down really hard, and those will help with the FPS. And of course, you will never notice those things because one, there will never be as many enemies as I have right now on my screen. But the second thing is it will always throttle the enemies that are in your peripheral vision, or you know, far from the camera, so it should not be as noticeable. So that is one main thing, was a lot of optimization, changing a lot of settings to make sure that everything works. In terms of settings, if I jump back into my debugging world for a second here, a lot was changed as well in terms of gameplay. mainly adding some features. We had some troubles with the key binding. Now that is all fixed. In terms of gameplay, you know, camera sensitivity, I think we already have a couple of these in the last devlog, but you know, we added invert axis. So some stuff has changed and been patched. In terms of abilities, we are actually really making good progress. So if we look at passives, we are actually getting a lot. I'll actually open the database here for a sec, because it's a lot easier to show in that regard. But we can see we have a lot of passives now. We are up to 63, starting 51. Yeah, so 63 passives. Still need to add a bit more, but a lot more interesting passives with special effects, like some one of them basically when you grab it, basically every enemy around you will take damage, so it's something good for melee builds. Other for example, Ghost Striker, the one that's being selected right now, if you're not moving, your critical chance will go up. So stuff like that are a bit more, you know, pushing you towards specific builds. In terms of active abilities, we've made a lot of progress as well. It is something that a lot of development was done again on stream, but if we take a look in the lobby world, in terms of weapon, we've not changed anything from the last test. This is something that unfortunately I need to have 3D assets to make weapons, and it is not something easy to make. But if we look at actives, this is a lot more simple to make, and a lot was added. So if I jump in here and we go, for example, offensive, we have Chain Vampires that was added, Onslaught as well. In the defensive, we have a couple here, Life Drain, Turret MK5, the Dude Bot, which I love, by the way. He's a little taunting robot. Okay. The model for it is definitely not final. It's something I did literally in like 3 minutes. But basically, yeah, so 3 new abilities here. Support as well, Divine Inspiration was added. I think I modified a couple of them. So we are still making progress on the actives, and a lot in terms of passives as well, as mentioned previously. Another thing that I can't really showcase here is the saving system. So basically there's 3 saving systems in the game, and previously there was 2. So one of the saving system is of course for your settings. So that's fairly simple, I want to explain that. The second one is for everything relating to your loadouts. So when you are playing the game, of course you have a base loadout that's being loaded. So in this case, like, you know, my Hotweiser, my 4 abilities, and my starting passive and suit, etc, etc. So basically a save for everything loadout related, and you can still see my counter of prisms going up. So that is the permanent currency that is also being saved into the same system. Now there is a second, a third save system that has been added very recently, and that's why actually the playtest is coming, in 2 weeks. I still have to do some tests with that. It took a while to try to figure that out because there was a lot of issues that came with that. But essentially, there is a save system that was added because in the previous versions, when you would be playing with friends, if a networking connection would happen, would have a problem, and a player would be disconnected, we wanted to have the ability of them coming back into the game and still having their stuff. So that was actually a lot more complex to do than what I anticipated. Initially, it was all saved on the server directly, and that caused some issue because of course you can't really predict when a network problem will arise, so you needed to save every like 5 seconds. We went for another system, I went for another system that now is saving on the client side, so that when it disconnects, if it is a networking connection problem, it can still save before that disconnection happens. So essentially a lot was done with the save system to make sure everything works. Normally everything is working. I still need to do some tests because we had one edge case that was still not working entirely correctly. I don't know why. So I still need to do a couple of tests. That is why we are not doing the playtest for the next 2 weeks. But essentially everything seems to be working now.
So that's it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, the next playtest is in 2 weeks normally, so I still need to, check that everything is stable. Even though it is an alpha, I want to try to make the experience as stable as possible before you guys can try it out. But normally it should be on the 11th of November. Again, it'll be posted on Twitter and Discord super soon. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll try, honestly, I'll say I'll try to post something in 2 months, I probably won't. But normally I should post something again rather soon. Alright, take care.